They say the moment you see your baby on the screen is pure magic. You're supposed to count fingers and toes. You're not supposed to watch the technician's smile freeze, then vanish. You're not supposed to see the color drain from the doctor's face. He said our baby was perfect. Then he leaned in, his breath a cold whisper against my ear. His eyes locked, not on me, but on my husband Mark, standing right behind me. You need to run, now, and don't look back. My husband planned for everything. The nursery, the college fund, the perfect life. But he never planned for the one thing his body couldn't hide. And now, I'm running from the man I love, carrying the secret that could destroy us both. Our story doesn't start with a scream. It starts with a smile. My smile. The kind that makes your cheeks ache, captured in a sun-drenched kitchen on a Saturday morning. That's me, Sarah. And that's Mark, my husband, placing a perfect avocado toast in front of me before I even realize it. He remembers my coffee, oat milk, 1 sugar, just shy of scalding. He always remembers. This was our life, a curated exhibit of happiness. We painted the nursery a soft, gender-neutral sage. Mark did the trim work with a steady, flawless hand, never a drop out of place. He'd hum while he worked, some old song I didn't recognize, but found comforting. We'd laugh, planning a future that felt as solid and real as the walls around us. He anticipated everything. A blanket when I felt a chill, a prenatal vitamin placed by my water glass. His love was a perfectly architected system, and I was its cherished central subject. But in any system, there's a latency, a tiny gap between stimulus and response. I started to notice it. The way his laughter would reach his eyes a half second after it. How he'd finish my sentences not with a guess, but with a quiet certainty, as if he'd already read the script. His attentiveness, once charming, began to feel like a form of monitoring, a constant gentle audit of my needs and moods. I'd catch him watching me from the hallway, his expression unreadable, before it would soften into that familiar, devoted smile. And then, the dreams. Not nightmares, not exactly. A recurring loop. I'm in a pure, white, silent room. I'm looking at our ultrasound photo, but the grainy image is static. And in the periphery of the dream, just beyond the frame, is a shadowy figure, not threatening, watching, observing every detail. I'd wake with a start, my heart pattering a frantic rhythm against my rib. And every single time, Mark would already be awake, propped on one elbow, his face etched with concern in the moonlight filtering through the blind. Another one, he'd whisper, his voice a soothing balm. His hand would come to rest on my arm, his touch cool and steady. It's just the hormones, my love. I'm here. You're safe. He'd say the right word. He'd perform the perfect comfort. But in that hazy moment between sleep and waking, his touch didn't feel like reassurance. It felt like a containment protocol, a gentle, firm reset on a piece of equipment that was dreaming out of turn. I'd push the thought away, bury it under gratitude for his care. This was my husband. This was our perfect life. The dream was just a dream, but it was a dream that left a residue, a faint digital aftertaste of being seen by something that wasn't supposed to. The morning of the 20-week scan dawned bright and brittle. Mark was a symphony of cheerful efficiency, laying out my most comfortable clothes like a uniform. Big day, he said, his smile a fixed, polished thing. The day we really meet our future. In the car, his joviality had a rehearsed quality. He talked not just about a future, but about the future, with a strange, granular specificity. By the time they're 5, the new cognitive development labs at the Stanford wing will be fully operational, he mused, tapping the steering wheel. We should get on the waiting list now. Optimal windows are crucial. I stared at him. Stanford? Cognitive labs? Mark, they'll be 5. They'll be learning to tie their shoes and not eat paste. He blinked, as if rebooting. Of course, I want every advantage for us. His smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes, which were fixed on the road with an unusual intensity. That's when I saw his knuckles, wrapped around the leather of the wheel, were bone white. He was holding on, as if the car were trying to buck him off, not gliding smoothly down a suburban avenue. The waiting room at the Maternal Wellness Center was a temple of soft beiges and muted. Pregnant women flipped through magazines or scrolled phones, partners offering supportive nods. Mark guided me to a secluded pair of chairs in the corner, his hand a firm press on my lower back. A wall-mounted TV played a local news channel on low volume. A reporter was mid-story. Still no leads in the disappearance of Dr. Anya Voss, the prominent cellular geneticist who vanished from her lab last week. Colleagues say her work was groundbreaking and highly specialized. Authorities are investigating. A graphic flashed on the screen beside the reporter's head. A corporate logo, maybe. A stylized double helix structure intertwined with what looked like a crescent moon and a single staring eye. It was sleek, modern, and it sent an immediate, irrational jolt of ice down my spine. Before I could process it, Mark's hand shot out. He snatched the remote from a nearby side table and pointed it at the TV. The screen blinked to a serene nature documentary, a slow-motion shot of a hummingbird. "Ugh, negative energy," he said, his laugh a sharp, discordant sound in the quiet room. He placed the remote back with exaggerated care. "We don't need that today of all days. We need positive vibes for the baby." He took my hand, his palm cool and dry, but my own hand was limp. I couldn't stop seeing it. That symbol. It wasn't just a logo. It felt like a label, a brand. And Mark's reaction wasn't one of casual disinterest. It was a swift, precise, surgical strike. A deletion. The cheerful facade, the white knuckles, the vanished symbol. They weren't separate anomalies. They were data points, connecting in the silent mainframe of my fear. The cold knot that had been forming in my stomach since the dream solidified into a hard, heavy mass of dread. This wasn't just pre-scan nerves. Something was watching. And my husband, the man whose heartbeat I knew better than my own, had just shown me, in one fluid motion, that he was not just aware of the watcher. He was its loyal instrument. The perfect glass of our life hadn't just cracked. I'd just seen the hand that threw the stone, and it was holding mine. The ultrasound room was dark, cool, and smelled of antiseptic, and the faint, sweet gel they smoothed over my belly. The monitor was a blank gray eye. Mark stood by my head, his hand on my shoulder, a weight I was hyper-aware of. "All right, let's meet your little one," the technician, a friendly woman named Chloe, said brightly. The wand moved, and the screen erupted into a chaotic, beautiful nebula of static. And then, there they were, a profile, a perfect button nose, a tiny hand, fingers splayed as if waving. A strong, steady heartbeat filled the room. Thump, 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 a primal drum of life. "There's your baby," Chloe said. "Looking perfect, textbook. 10 fingers, 10 toes." A wave of pure, unadulterated joy broke over me. Tears welled. I reached for Mark's hand, squeezing it. This was real. This was magic. For a moment, the white knuckles, the symbol, the dreams, all of it was washed away by that rhythmic sound. But Chloe had stopped narrating. Her cursor, a little blinking X on the screen, was no longer circling the baby's features. It was hovering at the very edge of the image, near where Mark's hand rested on my hip, his silhouette just visible in the scan's periphery. She zoomed out slightly, then back in, not on the baby, on that edge. She adjusted a dial on the machine. The image flickered, the contrast shifting. "Just getting some standard measurements of placental wall," she said, her voice still cheerful, but a note tighter. She zoomed in further. The baby became a blurry background. At the very border of the ultrasound's reach, where Mark's body met mine, the image wasn't just biological gray fuzz. There was a pattern, a faint geometric lattice, like a microscopic honeycomb, superimposed over the tissue. It was ethereal, almost a trick of the light. Chloe's smile was gone. She froze the image. "I'll be right back. Need to verify a machine calibrate." She left the wand on my belly and walked out, her steps quick. Mark leaned down. "See? Perfect. Just like I said." His voice was a warm murmur in my ear, but his eyes were on the frozen screen, on that faint, ghostly lattice. The door opened. It wasn't Chloe. It was Dr. Evans, the senior obstetrician, a man in his 60s with a calm, paternal demeanor. His face was now a mask of professional neutrality, but his eyes were wide, darting from the screen to Mark, then to me. He took the wand from Chloe, who lingered by the door, her face pale. "Mr. Bennett," Dr. Evans said, his voice booming with a false, jovial heartiness. "We're having a little issue with this ancient machine. A lens flare, of all things. Could you be a champion and fetch us a cup of water from the cooler down the hall? My throat is parched." It was a transparent, ridiculous request. Mark's hand tightened on my shoulder. "Of course," he said after a beat, his tone smooth. He leaned down, kissed my forehead, back in a flash. His exit was unhurried, calm. The door clicked shut behind him. The moment it did, the room changed. Dr. Evans moved with a sudden, frantic energy. He locked the door. He rushed to the screen, zooming in on the lattice until it filled the monitor. A complex, repeating symbol of interlocking crescents and helices, the same symbol from the news report. He turned to me, all pretense gone. His face was etched with pure, undiluted terror. He didn't speak to me as a patient. He spoke to me as a fellow human in mortal danger. "Listen to me very carefully, Sarah," he whispered, the words tumbling out in a desperate rush. His eyes kept flicking to the door. "What you are seeing is not an anomaly. It is not an illness. Your baby is perfectly healthy." He grabbed a tablet from a charging station, his fingers flying over the screen. He pulled up a secure portal, requiring a retinal scan from himself to access. A database appeared, all stark lines and redacted black bars. He searched, pulled up a file. The header was stamped, "Eyes Only, Project Chimera, Asset Tracking Protocol." There, in the file, was the same symbol, and linked to it, a definition, "Synthetic Biological Marker, Series 7, Nanoscale Quantum Dot Identifier, resonates under specific ultrasonic harmonics. Primary function, persistent asset tracking and physiological monitoring. Inheritable via germline." "It's a brand," Dr. Evans hissed, tapping the screen. "A factory stamp. It's in his cellular structure. His DNA is laced with, and now, through the placental interface, it's creating a resonance signature in your amniotic fluid. We're not looking at your baby. We're reading the echo of what he is." He looked at me, his eyes begging me to understand the magnitude. "This file is from a restricted DARPA-adjacent server I should not have access to. I served with a man who works in that world. He showed me this once, as a warning. This symbol is a danger signal. It means the asset, your husband, is active and now reproductively engaged. Do you understand? To them, you are not having a child. You are activating a prototype." He gripped my wrist, his hand cold. "They will know we saw it. The system will have a flag. He will know. You need to run, now. Don't go home. Don't use your phone. Don't trust anyone. Run." The door handle jiggled. A polite knock. "Everything okay in there?" Mark's voice, smooth as silk, filtered through the door. Dr. Evans's face contorted. He quickly closed the tablet, erased the frozen image. He pasted on a broad, unconvincing smile, his eyes screaming at me. The door unlocked. Mark stood there, holding a paper cup of water, his head tilted in benign curiosity. The perfect, attentive husband. But now I saw the other thing in his eyes. The audit, the scan. He was looking at the doctor, at the machine, at me, reading the data in the room. And I knew. The whisper in the dark wasn't a diagnosis. It was an evacuation order. The future he kept talking about wasn't a dream. It was a manifest, and I was cargo. The world snapped into hyperclarity. Dr. Evans's terrified whisper was a loop in my head, but my body moved before the fear could paralyze me. Survival wasn't a thought. It was a chemical command. Mark stepped into the room, offering the cup to the doctor. "Here you are, doctor. Nice and cold." I clutched my stomach, a moan tearing from my throat, not entirely faked. The gel, the pressure, it all coalesced into a genuine, rolling wave of nausea. "The gel! I'm going to be sick," I gasped, my voice ragged. Mark's attention pivoted to me, his face a mask of concern. Dr. Evans, playing his part with a desperate commitment, fumbled the cup. Ice water splashed across Mark's tailored shirt and the front of his trousers. "Oh, my apologies," the doctor blustered, grabbing a wad of towels, creating a flurry of distraction. It was the only window I'd get. I slid off the table, my legs wobbly but functional, grabbing my dress and pulling it on over the sticky gel. "Bathroom," I choked out, and stumbled not towards the door to the hall, but to the small, unmarked door in the corner of the procedure room, the staff exit Chloe had used earlier. "Sarah, wait, I'll help." Mark's voice was cut off as I pushed through the door into a blindingly white, sterile hallway lined with laundry carts and supply shelves. The door swung shut behind me, muffling his voice. I didn't run. I walked fast and purposeful, my bare feet slapping the linoleum, following the red exit signs like a blood trail. A part of my mind, a cold, detached part, noted security camera location and calculated blind spots. I burst out into an alley behind the clinic, the afternoon sun assaulting my eyes. The dumpsters smelled of rot and disinfectant. My purse was still in the room with Mark. All I had were my keys in the pocket of my dress, and my phone, buzzing now, in my other pocket. I pulled it out. A text from an unknown number. No words, just an image. It was a real-time traffic camera feed, showing the front entrance of the maternal wellness center. Mark was already outside, standing perfectly still on the sidewalk, his head slowly turning, scanning the street. He wasn't flustered. He wasn't calling my name. He was hunting. The text below the image appeared one letter at a time, as if typed by a ghost. System aware. He knows you know. Grid compromised. Go dark. Now. The phone fell from my numb fingers, clattering into a storm drain. I didn't watch it disappear. The message was clear. I was a glitch in their perfect system, and glitches were purged. A block away, in the parking lot of a shabby diner, sat an old boxy sedan, its paint oxidized to a vague blue-gray. The driver's door was unlocked. The keys were tucked above the sun visor. The knowledge clicked into place. A memory that wasn't mine. A survival protocol buried deep. I didn't question it. I slid in, the vinyl seats hot against my legs. The engine turned over with a complaining wheeze, then caught. I didn't think about destination. I drove, away from the clinic, away from our neighborhood, away from the life that had been a beautifully crafted lie. The ghostly lattice from the ultrasound screen was burned onto my vision, superimposed over the road ahead. The doctor's words were my only map. Don't go home. Don't trust anyone. Run. I was no longer Sarah, the expectant mother. I was a fugitive, carrying a secret in my womb that was both a target and a beacon. And the most terrifying thought, as I merged onto the anonymous highway, was the dawning realization: the skills I was using to flee. They felt as familiar as Mark's touch. What else had they built into me? The motel was called the Starlight. The neon sign, missing several letters, buzzed a sickly pink through the thin curtains, casting the room in a perpetual, dusk-like gloom. I'd paid cash from the emergency $50 I kept in my keychain pill case, another habit whose purpose I now understood. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner. I sat on the edge of the bed, the scratchy bedspread beneath me, and let the silence press in. It was in this hollow quiet that the memories, once cherished, began to twist. They came not as a flood, but as sharp, intrusive shards. Memory 1. The Foundation dinner. Mark in a tuxedo, charming a room of wealthy donors. The Viridian Foundation isn't just about philanthropy, he'd said, his arm around me. It's about directed evolution, investing in the human blueprint. The crowd had applauded. I'd smiled, proud of his passion. Now the phrase, directed evolution, curdled in my mind. Memory 2. The injection. Every Sunday night, like clockwork, he'd excuse himself to his study. Allergy boosters, he'd explain with a wry smile. Otherwise, I'm a sneezing mess by Tuesday. I'd once peeked in. The case wasn't an EpiPen. It was a small, brushed metal kit with a digital display. The vial inside held a fluid that seemed to swallow the light, an inky silver black. He'd caught me looking. His smile hadn't faltered, but his eyes had gone flat, like a camera lens, iris. Trade secrets, my love. Boring biotech stuff. He gently closed the door. Memory 3. The scar. On his lower back, just above the waistline. A 4-inch line, pale and perfectly straight. Climbing accident as a kid. Fell on a piece of rebar. I traced it with my finger, my heart aching for the boy he'd been. But now, in the motel's pink gloom, I saw it with new eyes. It wasn't the ragged tear of childhood trauma. It was a seam, a clean, surgical incision, an access port. I couldn't stay still. The walls were closing in, whispering with his lies. I needed data, proof. At a branch library on the outskirts of the city, I used a public terminal, my hands trembling. I searched Viridian Foundation. The official site was a masterpiece of vague, uplifting corporate speak, pioneering the frontiers of human potential. I dug deeper into the archived pages, the news section from 5-10 years back. And there it was, in a press release from 2014, celebrating a strategic partnership with a pioneering research collective. At the bottom of the page, small and discreet, was the logo, the interlocking crescent and helix, the staring eye, the symbol from the news, from the ultrasound, from the doctor's tablet. It was their brand. My search became frantic, a spider spinning a web of connections. Viridian wasn't a standalone entity. It was a node. It funneled money through a Russian doll nest of shell companies with meaningless names: Ether Holding, Ouroboros Biologic, Chimera Solutions Group. Each one, when I could trace a thread, led back to acquisitions of obscure patents, gene editing techniques, neural interface protocols, proprietary biocompatible substrates. Then I cross-referenced these company names with news archives, using terms like missing, vanished, no leads. The list appeared. A chilling pattern emerged over the last 12 years. Dr. Aris Thorne, a a pioneer in synthetic nucleotide design, disappeared from a conference in Basel, 2012. Last seen entering a car registered to a subsidiary of Ether Holdings. Professor Liana Cruz, an expert in quantum biological signaling, failed to return from a sabbatical in Iceland, 2015. Her research had been privately funded by a grant from the Viridian Foundation's Horizon Initiative. The entire three-person team from a small, cutting-edge lab at MIT working on targeted epigenetic inheritance vanished over a single weekend in 2018. Their lab's security logs were wiped. Their work had been the subject of a recent, aggressive buyout offer from Ouroboros Biologic. They weren't random crimes, they were acquisitions. The researchers were the original hardware, their knowledge, the software, and Mark. Mark was the finished product, the integrated system, the wealth, the injections, the scar. They weren't parts of a life. They were the maintenance schedule, the fuel intake, and the service hatch for a living, breathing piece of stolen intellectual property. I sat back from the flickering screen, the cold light washing over me. The fear was still there, a constant thrum. But it was now joined by a vast, desolate grief. I hadn't just lost my husband. I had lost the very idea of him. The man I loved was a library of other people's work, a walking, talking secret guarded by a shadow that consumed the brightest minds of a generation. And our child, our innocent, perfect child, was the next volume they intended to add to their collection. The library was closing. The polite, recorded voice announced the time, urging patrons to wrap up. The public terminal would soon lock me out. I had names, dates, a chilling pattern, but no direction. I was a ghost haunting a database with nowhere to go. On a desperate impulse, I opened a private browser and typed a string of words that felt ridiculous even as my fingers formed them. Synthetic biological marker crescent helix I symbol. The first few pages were gibberish. Obscure scientific abstracts, unrelated corporate logos. I scrolled deeper. Page 7, a link to a forum called The Loom. It's designed straight out of the early 2000s, all dark backgrounds and pixelated fonts. The header read, "Weaving the threads they cut." A thread title caught my eye. Chimera's Children, the Asset Pipeline. It had 3 views, last posted to 8 years ago. My heart hammered against I clicked. The thread was a graveyard. A single initial post from a user named Minotaur read, "They're not just editing genes, they're building architectures. The marker is the signature. If you see it, you're already part of the blueprint." Below, a single reply from Daedalus. "The labyrinth has no center, only doors. Find the first door. Subject 0. Then, nothing. Dead air for 8 years. As I stared at the cryptic exchange, a pop-up window appeared in the bottom corner of the browser. A private message. The sender, Oracle. Oracle, you're using a public terminal at the Cedar Bend Branch Library. Your search parameters have a 99.7% correlation overlap with a high-priority alert flag. You have approximately 4 minutes before a local compliance unit is dispatched to your location. The blood drained. I looked around. The library was nearly empty. A teenager at another terminal. An elderly man in the stacks. No one seemed to be watching me, but the screen knew. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, frozen. Oracle. Do not type. Do not speak. Listen. You are Sarah Bennett. You are carrying a catalyst. You are looking for Subject 0. You have found him. He is your husband. A file attachment appeared in the chat window. Subject_0_profile.enc. A decryption key followed. Mother Bear. I downloaded the file, my hands moving on autopilot. I plugged in the key. A PDF opened. It was a dossier. At the top was a childhood photo of Mark, but his name was listed as Subject M01, Prometheus. The text was a cold, clinical biography of a lie. The childhood illness that left him frail for a year was a cover for the initial implantation and stabilization procedure. His remarkable recovery and subsequent athletic prowess were the first successful demonstration of enhanced musculoskeletal and neural integration. His adoptive parents, the kind, elderly couple I'd known and loved, were listed as custodial handlers, level 1. Their entire relationship, a gentle, loving cover story. The dossier detailed his function, a stable, socially integrated field unit capable of real-time data assimilation and subconscious environmental manipulation. Primary value, Covert societal influence and genetic legacy propagation. Genetic legacy propagation. My hand went to my stomach. Oracle. M01 was the proof of concept. The first hybrid that didn't reject the architecture. He's not a prisoner. He is a paradigm. But a paradigm requires an heir to validate its permanence. The fetus is not a child to them. It is version 2.0, the first naturally gestated upgrade. Your husband's primary directive, buried beneath layers of constructed personality, is to ensure its secure delivery to the project. The words on the screen swam. Mark's love, his perfect care, his planning. Was it all a subroutine? A biological imperative to protect the valuable prototype I carried? Oracle. He does not know this, not consciously. The directive is latent, embedded in the same architecture that manages his adrenal response and cellular repair. He believes his love for you is his own. In many ways, the architecture utilizes the host's existing emotional framework, makes the directive palatable. This was the deepest cut. The love was real, but it had been weaponized, turned into a delivery system. A new message flashed, urgent. Oracle, Compliance Unit ETA, 90 seconds. Exit via the rear staff door. Alarm is disengaged. Go to these coordinates. It is a dead zone. A safe house built by one of the vanished. It holds the truth M01 is hiding from himself. The only truth that can break the directive. A string of GPS coordinates filled the screen. Oracle, they are coming. Not just for the catalyst. The safe house is your only chance. Find the truth he is hiding from himself. The final message. Oracle, good luck, Sarah. Become the error they cannot correct. The screen went blank. The browser session terminated itself, leaving no history. I stood up, my legs weak. The elderly man was now looking at a flyer on a bulletin board, his posture too casual. I saw the faint bulge of an earpiece under his thin white hair. I walked, not ran, towards the restrooms, then slipped through the door marked Staff Only next to the water fountain. As Oracle promised, no alarm sounded. I emerged into a loading alley behind a dumpster, the cool evening air hitting me like a slap. I had no phone, no map, but the coordinates were burned into my mind. A string of numbers that were no longer just a location. They were a question, aimed at the very heart of the man I loved. Who are you? When the program stops running. And a terrifying challenge for me. Do I want to be the one to press stop? The coordinates led to a place the forest was trying to forget. A long, private drive off a forgotten county road, its asphalt cracked and veined with weeds. At its end, shrouded by towering pines, stood a structure that was neither house nor hospital. It was a low, wide bunker of concrete and smoked glass, its geometric lines softened by a decade of moss and creeping ivy. A silent, modernist tomb. The Viridian Foundation logo was still faintly visible on a rusted plaque beside the blast door, which stood slightly ajar. This was the safe house, the vanished scientist's last stand. Inside, the air was cold and still, thick with the smell of dust, ozone, and something else, the sweet rot scent of abandoned organic matter. Emergency lights cast a dim, blue glow over a central atrium. It wasn't decaying like the motel. It was in suspended animation. Sleek monitors sat dark on dust-covered desks. A wall of server racks hummed with a low, persistent power, their indicator lights blinking like the slow pulse of a sleeping beast. I moved through the rooms, my footsteps echoing in the cavernous silence. One room was a library of physical logs, a rebellion against digital erasure. I pulled the binder at random. Subject, M01. Promethea. Daily physiological readouts. Neural synaptic density. Metabolic efficiency. Aberrant signal detection. Charts tracked his life in cold, hard data. A spike in biomarkers during our first date. A stabilization pattern after our wedding. His entire emotional landscape reduced to chemistry and electricity. Another room held hardware. Cradles for the injection kits I'd seen. A larger, more ominous chair with neural interface clamps and restraints labeled cognitive calibration. Then I found the sealed lab. A heavy circular door like a bank vault. Its mechanism disengaged. With a heave, it swung open on silent hinges. The cold that rushed out was arctic, carrying the tang of liquid nitrogen. The room was a gallery of nightmares. Rows of cylindrical stasis tanks, their glass fogged with frost. Inside, suspended in amber fluid, were shapes, not quite human, not quite machine. One had a spinal column, visibly reinforced with a carbon filament lattice that erupted through the skin in jagged spikes. Another's cranium was transparent polymer, revealing a brain interlaced with fine, silvery filaments that pulsed with a faint, dead light. Failed prototypes, the cost of the project, written in flesh and biopolymer. At the room's center was a terminal, its screensaver a rotating double helix. I touched the keyboard. It woke up, demanding a password. On instinct, I typed Mother Bear. The system unlocked. A single video file sat on the desktop, labeled Final Log, Dr. A. Voss, the missing geneticist. I pressed play. The face that filled the screen was haggard, brilliant, filled with a furious despair. Dr. Anya Voss. If you are seeing this, you have found my tomb, and you are likely running from my greatest success and my greatest sin. Her voice was a tight whisper, her eyes darting as if expecting an interruption. The marker is a lie. We told them it was for tracking, for ownership, but its true function is far more profound. It is a compatibility filter, a biological lock. She leaned closer to the camera, her intensity burning through the screen. The architecture within subject Alpha Prime, within Mark, is dormant, a seed. It requires a specific hormonal key, a unique genetic signature produced only during the gestation of his own offspring to fully activate. The fetus is not the product, it is the catalyst, the chemical trigger that will complete the integration, turning a stable hybrid into something else, a fully realized autonomous unit, what we called the Sovereign. The video flickered with static. They don't just want the child for study, they need the child present at term. The birth itself will be the activation event. Once the catalyst is delivered, Alpha Prime's transformation will be irreversible. His current personality, his memories, his love will be subsumed. He will become the perfect, logical executor of the project's will. And the child will be the template for a new species. She put her head in her hands for a moment, then looked up, her eyes hollow. I hid the key. I am so sorry. Your only chance is to find the core directive I buried in Alpha Prime's architecture, the one he hides even from himself. It is the only thing that might override the activation protocol. Look for the anomaly in the data, the ghost in his machine. The video ended. The screen went black, reflecting my own terrified face back at me. The truth wasn't in a box. It was a countdown. I wasn't just carrying a target. I was carrying a lit fuse. And Mark, the man I ached for, was the bomb. He didn't crash in. There was no violence, no squad of enforcers. One moment I was alone in the blue gloom of the dead lab, the ghost of Dr. Voss's warning hanging in the air. The next, I felt a shift in the pressure, a subtle change in the hum of the servers. He stood in the vault doorway, backlit by the emergency lights of the atrium. Not the polished, perfect Mark. This man was rumpled, his eyes shadowed with a fatigue deeper than sleep could cure. He looked at the stasis tanks, at the failed prototypes, and a shudder of raw revulsion went through him. He wasn't seeing exhibits. He was seeing a mirror of his own potential. Sarah, his voice was hoarse, stripped of its usual smooth confidence. Every instinct screamed to run, to grab something, to fight. But the video log had changed the equation. He wasn't just the hunt. He was the battlefield. Stay back, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I backed toward the terminal, as if its dead screen could shield me. He didn't advance. He raised his hands, a slow, empty gesture. I'm not here to bring you in. I'm here because the signal led me here, to this place. My whole life I've had gaps, impulses, a voice that wasn't mine, suggesting things, optimal routes, security flaws. I thought it was intuition, a gift. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. It was diagnostics running in the background. He took a cautious step inside, his eyes never leaving mine. The normal life, with you, it wasn't a cover story, Sarah. It was a rebellion, the only one I could manage. Every smile, every painted wall, every stupid, ordinary Tuesday was a brick in a wall I was building against whatever this is. He gestured at the room of horrors. The injections, I whispered. Suppressants, he said, the word heavy with shame. To dampen the signal, to slow the cellular integration, to keep me in the driver's seat. I found a defector years ago, a technician who gave me the formula, who showed me how to maintain the lie. He's gone now. They took him. The foundation. He nodded, a muscle ticking in his jaw. I knew they watched. I thought if I was perfect, if I built a perfect, normal life, it would be camouflage and I could have you, have a family, and keep the monster. His gaze dropped to my stomach. and his expression shattered into pure anguish. But then you got pregnant. The fetal hormones, they're a homing beacon and a key. They didn't just find me. They started waking it up. The architecture, the thing inside me. He stepped closer, desperate now. I knew the scan would flag something. I tried to control it, to get us out before they could act. But you ran, and when you ran, it triggered a deeper protocol, a pursuit algorithm. I've been fighting it for every mile, Sarah. Fighting the part of me that sees you as asset retrieval, that sees our child as a strategic objective. This was the fracture, the man and the machine, at war behind his eyes. Dr. Voss said the baby is a catalyst, I said, my hand protectively over my wound, that it will activate you, turn you into something called the sovereign. He closed his eyes, as if in pain. It's worse than that, he breathed. The activation, it's a two-way cascade. It will rewrite me, strip away the noise, the emotions, the memories that don't serve efficiency. But the energy for that transformation has to come from somewhere. He opened his eyes, and they were wells of terror. It will come from the fetal environment. It will use the baby's own developing genetic code as a template to recalibrate mine. And in doing so, it will imprint the same architecture onto them. At a fundamental epigenetic level, they won't just be my child, they will be my successor, the first naturally born sovereign, a perfect, organic weapon from their first breath. The moral dilemma crystallized, sharp and cruel as the ice in the tanks. If I ran, I'd be alone. A beacon hunted by an omnipotent system, carrying a child who's a walking arms race. If I trusted him, I was trusting a ticking bomb wrapped in the face of the man I love. A bomb wired to our baby's heartbeat. So what are you? I asked, the question hanging in the frozen air. The man who loves me, or the protocol trying to secure the asset? His shoulders slumped. Right now in this second, I'm the man, but I can feel the other things, Sarah. It's like a tide, and it's rising. Every second I'm near you, near the catalyst, it gets stronger. The love is real, but soon, it might just be the most effective way to ensure compliance. He looked at me, utterly exposed. You have a choice. You can run. I will try to hold the tide back as long as I can, to give you a head start. Or you can trust a liar who is literally programmed to betray you, and we can try to find a way to break the system that made us both into ghosts. He was offering me the gun and handing me the bullet. The ultimate test. Trust the source of the danger, or condemn us both to a forever of running. The ghost in his machine was begging me to be its exorcist. The silence in the lab was absolute, broken only by the faint, persistent hum of the servers and the hammering of my own heart. I looked at Mark, at the desperation in his eyes, at the war raging behind them. I saw the ghost of the man who built a nursery, and the shadow of the weapon he was built to become. Running was the logical survival 101. But logic had built this tomb. Logic had designed the tanks, the marker, the cold, perfect directive. It had not accounted for the variable it could not quantify. A choice made not from fear, but from a terrible, defiant love. I didn't speak. I walked toward him, each step a decision. He flinched, as if expecting a blow. I stopped within arm's reach, close enough to see the pulse beating wildly in his throat. Then, slowly, I took his hand. It was cold, trembling. I lifted it from his side and pressed his palm flat against the curve of my belly, where our child, the catalyst, the target, our baby, slept. He gasped, a shudder running through his entire frame. His eyes searched mine, wide with confusion and a desperate, fragile hope. You're not their subject, I said, my voice low but clear in the frozen air. You're not M01 or Prometheus or Alpha Prime. You are Mark Bennett, and you are this baby's I held his hand firmly, so act like, for a second, nothing. Then, a change. The tremor in his hand stilled. The conflict in his eyes didn't vanish, but it sharpened, focusing from a chaotic storm into a single, determined point. The human connection, the physical truth of it, became an anchor. It was a command spoken not to the man, but to the ghost inside him, a reassertion of a deeper, older protocol. Protect your family. He let out a long, ragged breath. His other hand came up to cover mine, his touch warming. Okay, he whispered, the word of vow. Okay. He looked around the lab, his gaze now analytical, seeing it not with horror, but with strategy. They're tracking the catalyst signal, my signal. They'll converge here. It's the protocol. Then we don't run from the signal, I said, the idea forming as I spoke. We weaponize it. A grim, understanding smile touched his lips, the first real expression I'd seen since the clinic. A Trojan horse, he said. This facility, Voss didn't just hide here. She built a dead zone, but she also left the back door into their own network. The servers are still linked to the project's old satellite relay. He looked at me, the ghost in his machine now an ally, a source of forbidden knowledge. We can use the baby's signal as bait, lure them all here, and when they're in rain, we don't fight them. We expose them. We flood their own secure channels with every file in this tomb. We broadcast the truth of the Chimera project to the world. The choice was made. We wouldn't hide. We would hack the system that created us, using the very beacon they were hunting as the trigger. The catalyst would no longer be a key for their lock. It would be the virus that crashed their entire program. The trap was set with our own heartbeats. From the facility's central server core, Mark worked with a frightening, innate fluency, his fingers flying over the keyboard, not as a programmer, but as a gardener pruning his own toxic roots. He wired the entire archive of Project Chimera, the logs, the schematics, the Subject Zero dossier, Voss's final confession, into a data packet primed to detonate. The trigger was proximity. The moment the project's enforcement signal, homing in on our combined biosignatures, reached a critical threshold inside the facility's perimeter, the packet would launch, not to one destination, to thousands. Major news networks, intelligence agency back channels, academic journals, public leak forums, an unstoppable digital epidemic of truth. We didn't wait to see them arrive. As the first silent black SUVs ghosted up the forest road, their headlights off, we were already moving, not as prey, but as architects of the coming storm. We slipped out through a maintenance tunnel Voss had mapped, emerging into the cold, pine-scented darkness a half-mile away. We didn't look back. We ran together to a stolen car parked in a hunter's pull-off. As the engine turned over, Mark's old tablet, jacked into the facility's dying power, lit up with a final, triumphant message. Broadcast initiated, signal locked, irreversible. We drove through the night, towards nothing and everything. At dawn, in a remote cabin paid for with the last of my cash, we huddled around a cheap digital radio, scanning the static. Then, we heard it, a breaking news bulletin crackling across the airwaves, a flustered anchor, voice tinged with disbelief. An unprecedented, massive data leak alleging a decades-long, illegal biotech initiative known as Project Chimera. The files, which appear highly credible, detail human experimentation, genetic manipulation, and alleged asset tracking of individuals. A symbol released with the files is already going viral online. On the tablet screen, which now had a weak data signal, we saw it. The crescent, the helix, the eye, our nightmare, flashing on news tickers, shared on social media, splashed across the world. The ghost was out of the machine. Mark turned off the radio. The silence that followed was vast, but it was no longer the silence of the tomb. It was the quiet after the first strike. We sat on the bare floor, hands intertwined, not the perfect couple's graceful clasp, but the desperate, firm grip of allies who have just declared war on a god. The fight wasn't over. They would be furious. They would adapt. We would always be looking over our shoulder. But we had done the one thing they never anticipated. We had used their own perfect design against them. We had injected their sterile system with the chaotic human virus of truth. They wanted the perfect prototype, a flawless, logical future. They engineered every variable, every response, but they forgot to code for love, for choice, for the willingness to burn your own blueprint to the ground. They wanted the perfect prototype. They created the perfect flaw. So, what was the story really about? On the surface, it's a sci-fi thriller about biotech and conspiracies, but strip that away, and it's about something much more primal, informed consent. Every relationship is built on the stories we tell each other, our past, our health, our intention. Sarah's horror wasn't just that Mark was engineered. It was that his entire being, the foundation of their love and the conception of their child, was built on information she did not and could not have. The ultimate betrayal wasn't the technology, it was the lie of omission. This story asks a terrifying question that's becoming less fictional by the day. In a world where our very biology can be edited, patented, and tracked, who has the right to know what's in your genes or the genes of the person you love? The lesson isn't to distrust your partner, it's to champion radical transparency. It's that love, to be truly safe, must exist in the light. It must be built on the messy, complicated, complete truth of who we are, not the perfect, curated story we think we're supposed to tell. The most dangerous secrets aren't the ones we keep from strangers. They're the ones we keep from the people who trust us with their hearts and with their future. What do you think? Where is the line between privacy and disclosure in a relation? Could you forgive a secret this fundamental? Let's have a real conversation in the comments below. And if you believe in uncovering the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, subscribe. We're just getting started.